9:10. Good morning. It's the board meeting at the new First Rule Studios in University Towers. Lady, gentlemen, welcome to the Big 550 KTRS. What do you think?
Glad to be here. It's
Wow.
wonderful.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It
I want to
really
do the
is.
whole show from the drums. I'm just going to be on the drums. Every
Yeah.
time Jane starts talking, I'm just going to start playing.
Wow.
Well, every time Jane talks, I do hear this drum beat in my head.
That's right.
So, wah,
Miss
wah, wah,
Reliable.
wah, 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 wah. All right, so starting to my far left, Jane Duker. She is an attorney and former chief of staff to Governor Holden. Good morning, Jane Duker.
Good morning, McGraw.
Tony Messenger, editorial page editor of the St. Louis Post Dispatch. Tony, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
The birthday boy, John Deal, is not here today.
Nope.
Happy birthday.
Must be celebrating.
So he is celebrating
Mr.
his
Speaker.
33rd birthday. So filling in for him is...
For the record, he is still older than me.
Okay. So
Just
that...
saying.
All right. I'm not going there. And then he's a movie producer. He's a movie director. He's star of stage and screen, local attorney, and an attorney for many of the North County businesses. Good morning and welcome back, Jay Kanzler.
Good morning, McGraw.
Let's start with more Ferguson stuff, and I'll throw it out there, and you guys can sort of chime in. What are your thoughts of Jay Nixon going out and announcing that Dan Isom is his new public safety director, the first African-American, or I should say the first African-American in his cabinet. He did not have any. The first one, I guess, in a while.
In a while. He
It's his
had
second
one other.
African
His
American
second.
in his cabinet. The only one he has right now.
Yeah.
And I'll start off by being snarky and say it was an amazing coincidence that the current public safety director, Jerry Lee, decided to retire just at this time when Governor Nixon was being pummeled for his lack of diversity in his cabinet. And now that's not to say that Dr. Chief Isom isn't a fantastic pick.
Right.
But I feel very bad for Mr. Lee. And I also think it's just another example of the governor being willing to throw anyone under the bus to further his political career.
Tony?
I think it's like a lot of things that Jay Nixon does and has done lately. It's probably a little bit too little too late, but it's a good move, and it's a good move that over the long term, over the next couple of years, could be good for the state. I think Dan Isom will do a very good job. I think he's got tremendous background and tremendous skills, and I think it will help bring a little bit more trust in the North County community to the state patrol and the National Guard and the overall state government apparatus. But here's the problem. This Ferguson situation, one of the biggest problems that we've had ever since the shooting of Michael Brown, is the lack of transparency. And so what does Jay Nixon do when he announces Dan Isom? He does it in his typical lack of transparency sort of way. He issues a news release the day before saying he's going to be in St. Louis to make a cabinet position, and mysteriously doesn't tell us what it's about because he wants to have the big surprise. And then Senator Jamila Nasheed lets us all in on the secret, and the Post-Dispatch reports it the night before. And then he announces Dan Isom and says nothing about, Jerry Lee just all of a sudden disappears. You know what? Just tell us what happened. We're not dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing this to try to ingratiate yourself with the black community in North County, then tell them, you know what? I looked at my cabinet. I had a problem in my cabinet. I added a black man to my cabinet because of it. Sorry, Jerry Lee, you did a great job, but this is what I did. And by the way, I need some more women in my cabinet, and that's next. I mean, why not just come out and be transparent and tell us what's going on so that it's a full win rather than
Get the
just
credit.
a look at, we got to change. It's maybe good.
And Jerry wants to retire.
It's typical Jay Nixon. I think it
Which I
might
think he
end up
did,
being a
actually.
good move, and a year from now or 2 years from now we look back at it and say, pretty good decision.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just be transparent. Tell us what's going on. We get it.
Sometimes it's not what you do, it's how you do it. I mean, that's the
his
old adage.
He has been tone deaf. I mean, there's no question that Jay Nixon
Right.
has been tone deaf for months, if not years.
Well, I mean, I agree with Tony. Why not get credit for it? Say, look, this did bring an issue to me. This is something I've been thinking about. I wanted to do it. Just own up to it, and you actually might get credit for it. I mean, he had an opportunity to jump in and take credit and say, you know what, I'm going to do something that I think is important and that I think, like you say, will get credit with, certain sectors of the community. Dan Isom's a great guy. I mean, I think a lot of people are really supportive of this choice. So why wouldn't you jump on the bandwagon? And there's a way to do it where Jerry Lee doesn't look like he was thrown under the bus. I think Jerry Lee did want to retire. I think this, it could have all been as simple as, hey, this guy wants to retire. I see a great opportunity to do something for the community. It could have been a win-win all around.
Let me ask you guys this question. One of the criticisms is that there's a lack of African-American police officers and authority in North County. Dan Isom, police chief in the city. Now he's a criminologist at UMSL. So he's living there, he's working there, he's in the community. Now you've taken him out of that community and put him in the state. It seems like, okay, great, now Jay Nixon has a man of color in his cabinet, but you've taken a leader in the African-American community away from North County where he was working as a criminologist.
Well, I hope that the goal is that, as he's sort of like the chief law enforcement guy. So you would hope that his position then would get him in a place where he could start, working on training, which is something he is very good at, recruiting. I mean, why couldn't he recruit as the director of public safety? Why couldn't he go into various communities across the state, not just Ferguson? I mean, Ferguson is one example, but we need diversity all across the state. And so he would be in a position then, I think, to go out there, recruit, really embed himself in the community, which he's done and he's good at, and and really change diversity. I think there's a real opportunity there, and so I agree with you. It's nice to have him in the community, but he may be able to do more from Jeff City in more places and at a higher level.
Yeah, I actually agree with Jane. I think he's going to be more visible in the community. I think the whole reason that the governor put him in this job is because over the next 2 years, the response to Ferguson, if we do this right, is going to be the dominating thing that happens in the governor's final 2 years of his tenure. And it looks to me like this is the first step in making sure that Don Isom and probably Captain Ron Johnson and maybe General Glenn Mason are all sort of the governor's front people coming into the community to help make these changes that need to happen within the law enforcement community, and elevating the importance of African Americans in the overall.
Why not say that? That's what I don't understand.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Is because while he is pandering to one demographic with this appointment, that is the black community of North St. Louis, he does not want to be seen as pandering outstate Missouri. Everything I believe that the Governor Nixon does is well calculated for his future, and he still has to talk to a community of outstate, which is dominant, and does not want to be seen as giving in to the city folks.
The problem I have with that, Jay, is I don't think outstate Missouri matters to Jay Nixon's political future. I don't think he's running another statewide campaign in Missouri ever. And maybe he gets a national appointment. Maybe he becomes somebody who can help other national candidates bring some Missouri votes. What he's done in outstate Missouri over the entirety of his career, that's who Jay Nixon is. Jay Nixon can walk into any rural place in Missouri and be accepted as one of their own. I don't think he needs to do that anymore, and that's why.
But he's not well liked here in St. Louis. I mean, you talk to people off the air. You talk to Democrats off the air. You talk to anybody. There's not a very good warm feeling when you mention Jay Nixon out there.
That's true.
Let me throw out this. Claire McCaskill runs for governor, wins, and appoints Jay Nixon as senator to Missouri, and he has to rerun then a statewide office to remain senator.
Hey, when did marijuana become legal?
I mean,
because you're smoking something back.
What planet are you on, Chancellor?
Holy mackerel!
I'm just saying.
You're just speculating.
All right. What about this?
What about Attorney General Chris Coster? How does he fit in your web?
Out of work.
Oh, okay.
What about this? Because they keep talking about how we're going to fix it, right? And the only people I've heard talking about fixing it is doing away with these little police fiefdoms, right? So Ferguson doesn't have 50 officers, and Delwood doesn't have 20 officers, and this one, St. George doesn't have this one, and St. Anne doesn't have that one, and so on and so forth. Is as much as everybody says that's the answer, it seems to me like there's nobody who is actually advocating that or running on that, because nobody in power wants that to happen.
The Post-Dispatch editorial page has been advocating that very strongly.
I disagree with you.
Okay.
Because one, I think, before all of this happened, I mean, and you were in the room, Tony, when, Steve Stenger came and said, my first 100 days we're going to do an Office of Community Empowerment, and we're going to address the poverty in North County. And one of those components was public safety. And this is all before all of this happened. And so I do think that there are people actually talking about programs, holistic approaches. See, and this is the thing, when you say fix it, what are we fixing? There is more to this than just the police, which is a significant, immediate problem. But there are other things that this crisis and tragedy represent, such as disparity in income, poverty, education issues, healthcare. There is, a multitude of problems that lead to the doubling of poverty that we've seen in St. Louis County in the last 10 years, and the abject neglect that has happened in North County in the last decade. And the bottom line is the state can't fix it. The state can do resources, but the bottom line, getting into that community, and it's not going to happen within these small municipalities. We're already seeing that those small municipalities are fiefdoms that cause their own troubles. And so, there's going to have to be leadership in the county.
You're telling me St. Anne is going to give up their police force. St. George is going to give up their police force.
I don't think
Ferguson's going to give up their police
It's-
force.
It's not going to.
St. George doesn't exist anymore.
Well, okay, but
they
you know what I
actually are the community that did the right thing.
Right.
Right.
I rarely, I shouldn't say rarely, often don't agree with the Post-Dispatch editorial board. But
hurts me, Jay.
I know.
But go ahead and tell me where you agree with us now.
He's smiling.
Yeah. Lately, the discussion about governments based on fines and fees, the perpetuation of this. I was a judge in a small municipality many years ago.
Part of the problem.
And what I saw, I was. And what I saw was that people would come in, they couldn't afford the registration on their vehicle, so they'd get a ticket. Then they couldn't afford the ticket or the registration, so they'd get a warrant fee. And they'd show up in front of me eventually owing about $500 when they couldn't pay $50 to begin with. And it just... And the
Snowballs.
the need for that was to fund the existence of that municipality. And I finally quit. I said, this isn't justice. This is finances. And so, one of the reasons that we have these police departments in all of these small municipalities is they are the sole, if not the sole, the predominant generator of revenue for the existence of that municipality.
And that is a huge part of the Ferguson story, the entire North County story. So many of these police departments and their speed cameras and their red light cameras exist to make money so that they can exist. And what happens? Ferguson has more warrants issued per capita than any municipality in the state, and it's not even close. So and most of them going to African Americans, so that most of those black residents of a majority black community owe money to the courts purely so that the police department that is now abusing them can exist. It's horrible, and that's where part of the problem has to be
But there are
fixed.
things that can be done. I mean, such as when you talk about petitions and recall, why aren't they recalling the city council members of the city of Ferguson or recalling the mayor saying,
Well, he just won unopposed. He ran unopposed and just won.
Right. Well, but if people believe that it's going in the wrong direction, there are remedies for that. They can recall him right now and say, we want this. They can recall the city council and say, we're going to start over. I mean, now...
But hold on a second.
But
Hold on a
winning
second.
in Ferguson, does that get you where you want to be?
But what
Not
you're saying
necessarily.
is the way to do this is for Ferguson to vote to disband themselves.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's a lot
Because
easier.
that's what St. George did, right?
That's
St.
what St.
George
George did.
voted to disband their community,
But to
their
get
town.
back to the
They could do
initial
an
premise,
initiative
to
to
get
do
back
that.
to the initial premise of your question, you are correct, and too many of our community leaders are wrong, and this is going to be the change that moves us more towards a situation in which the St. Louis region realizes, like the sign says outside of your new studios, we are going to be better together. We have to break down some of these government barriers and have fewer municipalities and fewer police departments and fewer fire districts and have better training and more unity so that we are a stronger community.
And this isn't just a Democrat issue. I got involved in politics way back when I was in law school. Wayne Millsap, a well-known Republican leader, I worked with him on the board of freeholders, where the mission there was, we have too many municipalities.
That's
we
a
need about
recurring problem.
1/10 of what we have, if that many. And he worked very hard, and it went nowhere. And Wayne was Republican
he wasn't
through and through.
that well known because.
Well, but I mean,
no, he's right.
But I mean, the minute you bring up city and county reunification, all of a sudden people's heads explode.
Well,
that's a different
though.
issue.
But that's different.
No, it's all connected. It's not a different issue. It's completely connected,
In
and
his
it's also
brain, right.
completely related. And this
Don't
is,
you think we should do some cleaning up in the county before we do all that? I mean, I agree. All of it has to be on the table.
What
but,
I don't
but
think
what
we
this
should do is
reveals-
continue to push it aside. We need to do this first, and we need to do this first, and we need to do. This is the problem with St. Louis. We always find a way to put something in the basket and not deal with it. And our chickens in Ferguson have come home to roost because we've been putting stuff in a basket for too long.
That's Tony Messenger, Jay Duker, Jay Kanzler. The board meeting continues.